Hey everybody! Sometimes the biggest wins on the ACT math test don't come from the hardest formulas. Today, we're going to crack open a strategy that's super simple but incredibly powerful. It's all about the basic rules of numbers, and it can be a total game changer for your score. Let's jump right in.
And look, let's not waste any time. What if I told you that getting really, really good at this one topic could add this many points to your composite score? Yeah, 2 to 3 whole points. That can easily be the difference between hitting that score you're aiming for and, well, having to take this thing all over again.
And this isn't just some wild guess. Here's why that score boost is totally realistic. The data shows that these types of questions are, well, they're everywhere. We're talking about 8 to 12 questions on every single test that use these concepts either directly or indirectly. Think about that. That makes this one of the absolute best value topics you can possibly study. So I want you to think about this in the right way. We're not just learning some abstract math here. Nope. We're talking about a strategic tool, a real game changer that can seriously boost your performance when it counts.
And these rules, they give you some serious advantages on test day. For one, speed. Knowing them means you can blast through answers in seconds, not minutes. Then there's accuracy. You can immediately spot and eliminate choices that are just mathematically impossible. It also helps you with strategy. You'll completely avoid those silly sign errors that trip up so many people. And because they show up so often, the time you spend learning this pays off over and over again across the entire test.
Okay, so let's open up this toolkit, right? There are really just 3 essential sets of rules that you absolutely positively need to know. Think of this as your secret playbook for crushing a huge part of the ACT math section.
All right, first things first, the absolute basics, odd and even numbers. Now, I know this sounds simple, but trust me, don't sleep on this. Even numbers, they're just anything you can divide by 2. Odd numbers are, all the other ones. This is the bedrock, the foundation for all the patterns we're about to uncover.
And this table here just lays out the patterns perfectly. Take a look at that first row. An odd plus an odd is always even. Now, jump down to multiplication. An odd times an odd, always odd. But here's the kicker. The second you throw an even number into a multiplication problem, like in that last row, bam, the whole thing becomes even. See? These aren't random. They're predictable rules you can use.
Okay, next up in our rulebook, positive and negative numbers. This right here is probably the #1 reason people make careless mistakes on the whole test, but there's a super simple rule that'll make you pretty much immune to them. The secret is this little memory trick right here on the slide. Seriously, you can forget everything else and just remember this. When you're multiplying or dividing, if the signs are the same, the answer is positive. If the signs are different, the answer is negative. That's it. A negative times a negative, the signs are the same, so it's positive. A positive divided by a negative, signs are different, so it's negative. If you can just lock that in, you've wiped out a huge category of potential mistakes. Just like that.
All right, for our last set of rules, we've got a true strategic shortcut. These are the divisibility rules. And listen, don't think of this as just more random stuff to memorize. Think of this as your secret weapon for checking answers and saving a ton of time. Now, you don't need to know the rule for every single number out there, just the ones that pop up all the time on the ACT. The rule for 3 is a classic. You just add up the digits. If that sum is divisible by 3, the whole number is. And guess what? The same exact trick works for 9. The rules for 2 and 5 are even easier. You just have to glance at the very last digit. These are your speed hacks, for real. And if you don't believe me, here's the proof. Let's do a little speed test. Say you need to check if 4,827 is divisible by 3. You could grab your calculator, carefully type in all the numbers, hit divide, and wait. That's going to take you what, maybe 15 seconds? Or you could use the rule. In your head, just go 4 plus 8 is 12, plus 2 is 14, plus 7 is 21. Okay, is 21 divisible by 3? Yep, so the whole number is. How long did that take? Maybe 5 seconds? You just saved 10 seconds that you can now spend on a much harder problem later on. That's a huge win. Okay, so we've got our rule book, we know the tricks. Now it's time for the real test, putting it all into action when that clock is ticking down. This is where the theory turns into actual points on your score sheet.
So take a look at this. This is a classic ACT problem, the kind you'd see pretty early in a test. If x is an odd integer and y is an even integer, which of these has to be odd? Now, your first instinct might be to start plugging in numbers, right? Like 3 for x and 2 for y. But hold on, let's use our rules instead. The truly strategic way to solve this is to see the rules, not the random numbers. Let's look at choice A. It says x plus y. Well, we know that's an odd plus an even. And what did our rule book say? Odd plus even is always odd. That's got to be it. Just to be safe, let's check B. X plus x. That's an odd plus another odd. We know that's always even, so B is definitely out. See that? In less than 15 seconds, we used the rules to find the answer, and we're 100% sure it's right.
Okay, so let's wrap all of this up into a clear winning strategy. This is exactly how you're going to take everything we just talked about and turn it into a higher score on test day. So here's your action plan. It's simple. First, you've got to memorize these 3 sets of rules: odd and even, positive and negative, and the key divisibility rules. Then when you look at a problem, train your brain to see the rule behind the numbers. Use those rules to immediately knock out answers you know are wrong. Doing this saves you an incredible amount of time you can then use for those really tricky problems at the end of the test. Plus, when you nail these early questions, it builds a ton of momentum and confidence.
You know, at the end of the day, that's what this is all about. These concepts aren't just some random math facts. They're a system for improving your speed, your accuracy, and ultimately your final score. So really, the only question left is, are you ready to go claim those extra points?